In this week's session, it's all about security and Microsoft 365 Defender. We're going to look at all the features and functionality, and we're going to ask how much security is enough. And more importantly, what do you need to do to keep you safe? Stay tuned. Greetings, my fellow YouTubers. How are you? Andy here, Microsoft MVP. So nice to see you, especially, hey, if this is your first visit to my channel. Now, just a quick mention that 24% of you have subscribed, and absolutely fantastic. You guys are absolutely rock stars. I really do mean that. For those of you who haven't subscribed though, come on board. Come and join this great community that I'm trying to build out, and you'll really learn something every week here. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button up there, ring that bell, and you'll be notified of any new postings. Now, this week's episode, I thought I would take a look at security, and specifically, we're going to look at Microsoft Defender for 365. I've covered many of the other Defender products, but in this session, I thought we would look at the one that we probably use most. Now, for most of you, you're going to have access to some or all of these features. I'm using an E5 subscription, it's just a demo, and it will walk you through all the different tools that we have. Now, if you've got any questions, comments about this, or in fact any of my sessions, then of course just get them down below. I really do appreciate it. And recently, you maybe noticed I've been publishing shorts. I had a couple of comments, why do I not put thumbnails on the shorts? I'm new at it. I just need to post around 10 shorts and then I'll be able to do thumbnails. So that's pretty cool. Hey, listen, thanks very much for your support. Absolutely, you guys are rock stars. Wow, guys, I can't tell you what that means to me. I really do appreciate it. Okay, so I think without any more jibber jabber, I think it's about time we got to the demo. Enjoy. So I'm kicking off the demo here in the Microsoft 365 Defender Admin Center. And one of the first things you'll notice is these cards, and you can move these cards around. So if you want to drag them up and move them, you can do so. Now, if you want to add cards, again, there is a section over here, and again, that will add any additional cards that you want to bring in. Now, in the past, I've done sessions on Defender for Cloud Apps, so forgive me, but I'm not going to do that today. And I've also done sessions on Defender for Endpoint, and again, I've done those recently. I'll include the links to those in the description below. What I want to do though is just give you a nice kind of quick start guide into Defender for Microsoft 365. Now, before you start, the interesting thing to note is you definitely want to go down into a couple of options down at the bottom here. And firstly, you want to look in settings. Now, the nice thing about Microsoft Defender is that in the past, we used to have different portals for each of the products. So, for example, we had Defender for Cloud Apps, we had Defender for Endpoint, and so on, and they have their own portals. So it's really nice to see all those portals now coming together in one place. And the settings accordingly come down here. So, for example, if you were managing endpoints, I would come down here, and one of the first things that you would do is you would need to download the agent in order to monitor the device. And you can either deploy this either here through a script and an agent, or you can manage it through Defender for Endpoint or Microsoft Intune, which I'll cover in a separate session. The other things that we've got in settings as well are things like, reports. So if you want to manage reports, and you want to perhaps anonymize those reports, again, some of these settings will have that. So again, make sure that you check those out. So I'm sure that many of you are global admins or security admins, or you'll have some kind of administrator or RBAC permissions role. Well, what I'm seeing is a trend with Microsoft now. So you may need to have specific permissions for some security and compliance features. So to do that, you can see in this case, because we've got Defender for 365, we've also got Defender for Cloud Apps added in and so on. It adds in the additional roles. So for example, in your organization, you might want to have a junior person who is responsible for, let's say, reports and logging, or you might want to have a security operator, maybe as a security engineer, or somebody who's going to be a dedicated security administrator. So definitely check out the RBAC roles in terms of security and compliance permissions in both the security and purview admin centers. Okay, so let's take a look at what we can see first of all then. So I'm going to come first of all into incidents and alerts. And here in incidents, you can see it's generating quite a fair number of incidents. Some of them relating to users, some of them relating to, let's say, specific devices. And because I'm using Defender for Endpoint, if I click into this particular incident here, you can see it's showing me that there's a multi-stage incident involving initial access and collection of data. So this looks like somebody's trying to get into one of our devices on our network. And this can be done by a number of means. Perhaps the account has been compromised. Perhaps the user has clicked on a malicious link or downloaded something nasty. So it potentially could be either an automated attack or it could be an intruder. Now, again, what we can see here is you've got different categories here. So things like any kind of recommended actions. So it will show you kind of recommended actions, and this ties into things like Secure Score, which is really nice. Other things that we've got, it will show you any alerts. What devices are being affected here? Are there any users affected in this case? So again, this would definitely warrant additional investigation. Are there any users' mailboxes that have been affected? Any apps? So also evidence and response. So if you're doing like a digital investigation and you want to gather evidence, this could be very useful. So I suppose before we continue, I should mention MITRE here, Adversarial Tactics, Techniques and a Common Knowledge. This is a common framework that hackers will normally use in order to gain access to your systems. So once they've done initial probing, what they'll try and do is gain persistence by typically using a malicious piece of code. What they'll try and do is escalate their privileges, so they'll come in nice and quiet as a regular user and get up to administrator level, and then proceed with their planned malicious actions, which could involve deleting data, dropping some kind of ransomware, doing some kind of damage, and so on. Ultimately, though, what they'll then do is once they've finished the attack, they'll either gain persistence so they can come back again, or alternatively, they will delete logs and remove any evidence that they were there at all. So one of the nice things about Defender for Endpoint is it can actually identify where the attack is taking place and at which point in the framework this is actually happening. So now as I come back into the incident and click on my summary page, you'll now see that MITRE Tactics currently in use. So it will show you at what stages and how far the potential attack has gone. And this really then does mean a lot more to you. So you can see it shows you the different stages of the attack, almost like a metro line type incident. And as I've mentioned, it shows you how many devices, how many mailboxes, and how much evidence has been found there. And again, you can go in and view the evidence. And this is probably going to be like files or registry entries or registry changes and things like that. So you'll get the incident information here. It shows you which users are currently impacted, and as I said, you can then come back up to the story page, back to that incident, and you can then decide on, okay, how are we going to manage this incident? So you can either, of course, ask those Defender experts, and this is a special team at Microsoft who is dedicated to cybersecurity. There could be additional charges for this, though. You need to check your license. Okay, ultimately, though, you can then go into each of the alerts, and within the alerts, I can then go into that alert and I could then manage that alert. And I can even assign it to a different member of my team. I can create some notes. I can manage the alert itself. So I can say, okay, is it resolved? Is it currently in progress? I can classify it. So what kind of attack do I suspect it is? For example, it could be a phishing attack here. I can then set a classification. So is it absolutely critical? I could put some notes in. And then, of course, ultimately, you might want to export that, for example, for evidence. And you can also then take action on how you're going to deal with it. Now, again, if you've got Defender for Endpoint and you've got Azure Sentinel, both of which I've covered previously, and again, I'll put the links in the video, you can automate your responses here as well, which are really useful. So that is just a little bit about alerts and the incidents. Next one is hunting, of course. So again, Microsoft provides you with a whole bunch of different advanced hunting scripts here. Now, these are KQL or Custo Query Language scripts. I'm not going to cover them here, but I am going to cover them in a dedicated session in the future on how this actually works. But again, these are super simple to work and can really help you dive deep into what's causing a potential attack. And ultimately, you can also create your own queries as well. You can also create your own custom detection rules, and there are a number here. So anytime you create a detection rule, you can then rerun it and you can view things like historical information and so on. Then we come on to the actions and submissions. So any actions or any cases that are currently ongoing, you can have a look at the case itself. So for example, if it's from a user who's maybe received a piece of malicious malware, you can go in, you can do an investigation. Okay, so you can see that we have a case here. It gives me the full details of the case. So perhaps the user has received a piece of malicious malware. Again, you have the options to take actions here against it. So again, those actions, I can now say, okay, I want to do more investigation. How do I want to respond to this? Again, it depends on whether it's a piece of malware or whether it's actually an action against the user. So in this case, you can also submit it to Microsoft. So for example, if it's a piece of malware, you can say, okay, report is clean, report this piece of malware as a phishing attack, as junk mail and so on. And what then Microsoft will do is they will then update all of those rules. So you can fill in this information. You can, very, very simple wizard to send off, and then Microsoft will investigate that for you. So the next one down is the threat analytics. Okay, I love this because this is just keeps you up to date with what are the latest threats out there. So things like, currently Microsoft are tracking 59 ransomware types, 25 different types of phishing campaigns, 66 vulnerability campaigns, and so on. And what it does is it shows you the severity of those types of threats. And you can also go into each of them and learn a little bit about them. So it shows you at a glance if anything has been impacted in your organization by those threats. So things like you also get an analyst report. So if you want to learn about the threat, you can go through and actually learn all the documentation and also how to potentially detect the threat and how to mitigate it. Are there any related incidents that you need to be alerted for? Any related assets within your organization? And again, it makes recommended actions. So this is a really fantastic tool in learning what the latest threats are and how to defend against them. Now, in addition, we also, of course, have Secure Score. Secure Score has been around a very long time now. And again, it's split into different sections. So of course what we're looking for is to create some kind of defense in depth model. So not only do we have defense in depth in terms of identity, so multi-factor authentication, of course you've also got encryption to protect your data in transit, both at rest and also on the move. You've got device security as well, and of course you've also got app security, so making sure that those apps are actually doing what they say they're doing. This is really useful. So what Secure Score does is it shows you what your score currently is in comparison to your industry peers, if you will. The score is comprised of both Microsoft and your settings. And the idea is it makes a series of recommendations for you. So if you go into the recommendations, you can see it will improve your score at no end. It will show you what the recommendation is, how it can be implemented, and ultimately what the user impact is. You can manage that. So, this is how it works, right? I'll go off and I'll manage that now. And do I want to share this with anybody in my team? So, for example, if you've got a support team in Teams or a user by email, you can send them this and say, hey, John, you want to take care of this for me. So that can be really super useful, by the way. So ultimately, of course, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the highest workable score here. You've also got an overall history. So how are you progressing in terms of security, and what the current metrics and trends are. So again, what Microsoft do is they compare your score with your industry peers here. So again, how do you compare with your colleagues and competitors and so on? So the other thing that we have is the Learning Hub, and this is your one-stop shop to learn all about the different types of security tools. So this will take you through to learn.microsoft.com, and these are the most critical things that you would need to learn. Some of these are reading articles, some of these are videos, but I guarantee if you want to learn the tools, then the Learning Hub is a great place to go. Trials, of course, you can go in and you can try the various security trials. So again, if there are additional security features, you can normally go in here and get 30-day trials. I really like this. This is a new addition. This is the partner catalog, and this includes complementary products to improve security or sit alongside Microsoft technologies, but also we have a number of consulting services here as well. So if your skills, you feel that I could use some help, then again, you can work alongside Microsoft and its partners here too. I'm going to scroll down. The next one is assets. So in assets, of course, I've got all of my devices, and this is devices that are potential have vulnerabilities. So this is my device inventories, and it shows me the risk level of those devices. Again, it shows me things like, are they highly exposed, what the operating system is. And again, I can go into each of these devices and investigate them individually. And this, as you can see, takes me in essentially into endpoints. So I can see if there are any alerts on those devices. You can see it shows me what the device is, where it is, the IP address details, what the risk level is. Are there any incidents that I need to be alerted to? Any security recommendations? So it even shows me the inventory of software on that device, any kind of browser extensions that I've installed, and so on. So that's a really nice feature that you can do that. And it also links in, of course, with tools like Intune and so on. Endpoints, of course, are Defender for Endpoint. I've covered that previously in a session, and if you've not seen that, I'll go ahead and link to that in the description below. So the next thing then is email and collaboration. Are there any ongoing investigations with Microsoft regarding any attachments that you've sent? And that can connect to the investigations tab. So the next thing then is the Threat Explorer here, and this will give me a nice historical overview of any potential threats within my organization, any known ransomware campaigns, phishing campaigns, and so on. This is really nice, actually. Again, you've also got different tabs for those as well. So you've got the threat tracker there. One of my absolute favorite tools, and I did a session on this about a year ago actually. I'm going to do a more up-to-date version of this. This is the Attack Simulator. It does require a separate license, but it's definitely well worth it. And the idea is that we have a huge library of potential attacks here, and Microsoft are really good. They keep this right up to date. The only difference is what you're doing is you're creating a phishing campaign. You're trying to invite your users to either click or download something malicious, but it's okay. The only thing is here is once that campaign goes live, and if the user did fall for the attack, then essentially they would just be invited to take some additional training. So it's a really nice feature, and as I said, I'm going to do a dedicated session on this in the not too distant future. All right, traditional policies and rules. So again, I'm sure many of you have seen these. So typically we have our threat policies here. So things like anti-phishing policies, anti-spam, anti-malware, and we also have safe attachments and safe links. These two are typically available if you've got premium, and also if you've got like an E5 or EMNS. So definitely make sure that you use these. These are really good. Again, I've covered these in previous sessions. Please go ahead. I'll put the link underneath and you can have a look at those. All right. Now, to be honest, out of the box, actually, Microsoft do pretty much give you a pretty good set of kind of default filters, and they're actually pretty good. But again, as always, you're quite within your right to go in and customize these if you want to. All right, so definitely have a look at policies and rules. The Cloud App Security, or Defender for Cloud Apps as it's now known, has now found its way into Microsoft 365. Again, I recently did a session on this, so I'm not going to cover that, but I will put the link below. So next is the reporting section here, and you can see we have absolutely lots and lots of different reports here that you can view. So everything from security reports to potential threat reports, things like endpoints, email and collaboration reports, cloud apps. Again, depending on the modules that you have installed in Defender for 365, you'll get more options here. All right. So I can go into any of these reports, for example, here into the security report. Again, it breaks the elements down so I can see at a glance, is there something not compliant, or is there a device affected? Again, I can view the details, I can drill into that, and so on. Finally, if I click onto the health option here, if I go into the service health, this will take me into the health option in Microsoft 365. It will just give me an overview of the various services. Covered permissions and settings already. More resources are kind of older features or additional features that are currently being migrated. So in this case, you've got the compliance center, you've got Azure Active Directory. So it's just really linking you through to the various other Microsoft 365 features. So there you have it. That's it for this week. I really hope you've enjoyed that session. And if you did, as always, comments, questions, get them down below. And if you've not subscribed, bump the subscribe button up there, ring the bell, and come and join our community. Okay, that's it. I'll see you next time. Take care. Hey, thanks so much for dropping by today. Here's a couple of videos that you may enjoy, and while you're here, go ahead, click on the subscribe button and you won't miss out.